Greetings, YouTube. The other day I saw a thread on the 3.5 Sanctuary where someone had posted some questions dealing with D&D and or Pathfinder. So this is kind of specific to that, the OGL in general. So if, these questions are probably not going to be pertinent to games outside that, though it may also be pertinent to some of the older editions of D&D as well. I have no idea how well it pertains to 4th or 5th edition. So here are the questions we have. All right, number 1, what is your favorite race? Now, I've always been a fan of dwarves. I've always found them fascinating. I try not to play them as Scots. It's hard somehow. I've never really been able to figure out why people play dwarves as Scots, but by gosh and by golly, we do, don't we? I find them to be one of the more interesting races, and I tend to be like a dwarf. You know what I mean? Heavy armor if I can. Fighter types usually. Sometimes I'll throw in a little. Back in the day, I would throw in some rogue. Now I would probably do a straight fighter. Go for a very solid tank build. High con being the highest stat, and then strength, and then probably just enough dex so I could actually throw something when hit a target. Very much emphasizing staying in the fight longer than my opponent, as opposed to just destroying them outright with strength, just outlasting them. 2, favorite class. Again, I've been a fan of martial classes. I like fighters for dwarves. If I'm going to play like a ranger, I'm also a fan. I'd probably go human. And if I were going to go to like an archer, I might do the classic elf or just go with a human in that case. Favorite weapon. I like one-handed weapons that do a lot of damage. So things like the bastard sword, the war axe, the maul. I'm a big fan of those. If it comes to two-handed weapons, I'm going to go things like the great axe or like a great club or tetsubo, kind of a blunt version of a great axe. Never been a really big two-handed sword fan. I don't know why. I prefer axes and great clubs, things like that, over two-handed swords. Can't tell you why. A heavy two-handed flail would also be a nice choice because it gives you a lot of options there. That would make an interesting build, particularly for a dwarf. That'd be unusual, and I kind of like that idea. 4, favorite spell. I've never been a big spellcaster, I'll freely admit. So for me, like the magic missile or the fireball, some of the classic blaster spells, those are cool. They're the ones that come into mind when I think of spellcasters. 5, favorite feat. Since I really do like martial classes, I happen to be, it's really boring and vanilla, but I happen to be a fan of improved initiative. Just because it gives me the jump on casters and on ranged people, because I want to make sure I get them down, because I tend to like melee characters. So it's dull, I admit it, but it can give you a major boost, particularly if you're playing a dwarf with only a +1 in your dex. That definitely is going to help you get a boost and get a chance to take out that mage with a thrown javelin or a charge. Favorite monster. Well, I would say that just out and out monsters, if I were like a GM, over my shoulder, you see an owlbear. Actually, I'll bring the owlbear in because he's adorable, isn't he? So that was like my favorite monster as a GM, and I think it's one of the most iconic D&D monsters. If you're just going to say favorite monster in general, that would be the Flump. I love the Flump. The Flump is awesome. The Flump is underused. He's just makes me smile every time I say it, makes me smile every time I use it, or I think about it. Flumps are great. And 7, the last question is favorite adventure path or module. Now, I have to admit, I think I've only read one adventure path from Pathfinder, because I'm not really much into purchased modules much anymore. I'm more inclined to use them as maps or as just their random generation. If it's a good dungeon, I might use the dungeon and lift it, put it someplace else. So I can't say I have a favorite adventure path at all. If you're going to go modules, I'm going to go old school here and say the Giant series, the G series. They were awesome. The following D and then the Q series, they were also cool, but for me, the Giant series, especially the G1 with the Hill Giant setting, it's just a classic. It is so much fun. I ran that as a GM, I don't know, 6, 7 different times. And as a player, I think I ran through it at least twice. A couple of the other really deadly, is it White Plume Mountain? That one that's really deadly. That was a good module as well, just for fun. I don't know if any of us ever actually completed that module. I don't know if we all survived or not, but it's still a really cool module. And I will admit that in my early days, some of the modules that I came up with, some of the dungeons I came up with, were just so boring. If I were to look at those maps now, I'd be like, why? Why did I do this? It makes no sense. It wasn't well thought out. There wasn't any narration, no narrative here. It was just a bunch of random crap. Just like using the monster manual as an A through Z list of things that you had to fight. You know what I mean? Almost that bad. So this is my answers to these questions. I will post the questions in the information bar below, and I will go hunt down the thread, and I'll put that in there too in case anyone wants to go over to the 3.5 Sanctuary and join in. You are welcome to. Doesn't get a lot of traffic, but so any would be appreciated. I'm not associated with the forum. I don't run it or anything, but I am a fan. It's nice to see that the 3.5 rule set still has some fans out there. And I always hate the interface. Something about the interface in the Pathfinder boards just gets under my skin. I wish it would ran like all the other forums I've seen out there, like RPGNet or a couple other ones I've talked about in the past. They just seem to run so much more smoothly than the Pathfinder boards, Paizo boards. I don't like them. I don't know what about it is that the interface just irritates me. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I'm sporting my new cardigan. You like my new cardigan? So I'm looking forward to any of you out there who would like to answer these questions. Obviously, this is slanted towards D&D/Pathfinder. But if you have a favorite fantasy setting from another set of rules, GURPS, HARP, Hero, Savage World, what have you, then some of these questions are pertinent. Feel free to join in as well. All are welcomed. And I just felt like talking about gaming stuff today.